Alright, that's that. Oh, that then he so that's a hat on your rochi may na, and then this and it's a Dunroda, and it's a Kida Jada, she was also Suline, Dosine, Goshia Pat Chimbatan Gores, and the may be a Danyamda, and the mean a Jowotiniki Kanga Yuentislia, on Dosine, part Jawores, the main begeda, Jike, Nyamne Jikin Susurangida, then Nyamne J. Comja Dugan Dinikinda, Consolea, and the Dosine, Chikom Shikech Jawores. And the social hamadi, social say hamadida, society, Yadam Buconjolia Chobapui, then the society, Remba some Saures, Petro Yatava Mayemba, Nuntava Mayemba, set out out of Dushin as Saures, in Savannah, and the Yatava name, and Nikoyadam, Yamenchel, New Days, and the Nuntava and the Rotoyada, so Subuko Chania, Yamench, New Days, Dushenda, Kalaki Quartinere, the main bedam. Association that Sambaro Chinada Marina Susuki, the Yejero, Jalaro, Chugul, Suki, Dulor, Susu Chugul, Sumde, Shembe, Lama Yovana, and Disobachim, but Tangores and Dushan Tangores, because I did the nation of Shirua.
Good evening. So last week we looked at a few verses, the final one of which was stating that one should utilize whatever one has in abundance to help others, to be of benefit to others. And even when one's what one has in abundance is limited just to some extra food, that too should be offered to help others. The particular context, although we take it more broadly, the particular context is even when one is in retreat, in isolation, there when one has food, one first offers it to the three jewels, and then one also offers what one has in abundance to others in need. And there it was presented that those who have fallen into the lower realms, such as the animals in one's vicinity, as well as those who are unprotected. So those who are either destitute or ill, and then to one's fellow practitioners. So one makes offerings to them after having offered to the Buddhas whatever one has in abundance. Not just food, but more broadly too, if one has. Then when it comes to eating, one should eat what you require, but only eat what is sufficient. One shouldn't eat too much, because then one will become heavy and lethargic and the mind will become dull, maybe even sleepy. Or one shouldn't eat too little, otherwise one's distracted by hunger, one's body may become weak, one's mind overly light and flighty. So therefore one needs to eat the right amount.
Oh yeah, that didn't my share team. Dambe chuni jubi lose, and then transit chido new mejas. The third share na simjengi. And
continuing with the 86th verse, this body that is for practicing the sublime Dharma should not be harmed for a minor purpose. If this advice is followed, sentient beings' wishes will be swiftly and completely fulfilled.
Lama Yubaneda, Dushin, Jimbatangore, Sunwa. The name that denies that Ma Janjusemba, the Jimbe Yamlin, the Persian Julian Jehoza, Jimbe Yamlin, and that Jehorba, the name that Jimbe Yamlin Chevala, Sangu Rangu Lulia, never Chigo Mares or Tangele. Then Ranju Ludi, Dambeche said, the Anju Taditi, Jina, that Tarba, Sanji Yokovan Tobachi, Semja. Ranshanige Duan Tadu Juya, Sanyo Koban Toyaji, Lam Yamli Rimba, that Janju Sim Yukune Lambi Tone, and Jimba Sun Super Junju, some the Sherry Yamli, that Dambi Chese, the Pajin Juke, Sim Yamlin Rimba Sonder. The nigger trading. That the nigger trading Yamlin Din, that Yaksho the Capital and the Caresene, that Manzugi Tindu Lutin the Res, Nansungi Tinla, that Yamli getting it on Yamli Kalahore, the name that Anzu Lutin. And the nigger Sanjo Koban Tobachi Begi, Lam Yamneji, then Shodu Cuba, the Andu Lutin, then one do Lutin, Taju Lutin, said, that's Yamani to the Taju Lutin, Zachimushu said, Dirwa, she's not Lutin, and Tambuchu, Nijubu said, she's not that, Tambuchu, Semja Tamji, to know, Sanjo Koban Tobi Chedo, Janju Simu Kunia, Pajan Jukin Yamne Yamne Badi Tambuchu, di nyamsu lenge ten di anzu luten dabi luten kyabarchane ten kyabarchane re se songorda dambe chune jibu lu sede.
As you saw in the previous verse, when a bodhisattva is practicing, they will, or in the previous verses, because it was maybe a few verses ago, that the perfections commence with or begin with that of generosity. So when the bodhisattva is practicing, they will start with a focus on generosity. They'll be practicing all of the other perfections too, such as, namely, ethics, patience, choice, perseverance, concentration, and wisdom, but the emphasis will be on generosity. And when they're in isolation, they'll practice, as we saw in the last verse last week, practice generosity through giving their food, as well as extra clothing or whatever else, if anything else they have, they will practice generosity with it. But in this practice of generosity, the bodhisattva still needs to protect their body, because the body will have long since been recognized as the vital vessel by which one accrues the causes for Buddhahood, in particular, bodhicitta, and engages in the 6 perfections. So therefore this body is of great importance. Moreover, the bodhisattva will have long recognized this importance through recognizing that they have again achieved a precious human rebirth, a rebirth marked by the 18 freedoms and endowments, or leisures and opportunities. And this is something that is precious. It's rare, it's difficult to find, but can achieve an incredible purpose. And the bodhisattva is achieving the purpose that comes with, or the potential that comes with this life. Therefore, this body, this life, needs to be guarded, protected.
Ana dambe chene jubi lu se dambe che se di janshu simbi simbi wane pachu rin yam lendi che jubi lu se di nyamsu len ge long jubi lu den kyabar chan di re se dan jubi lu den re se da di ma she dene ge chanse che do ne me sha se de 제사다 데네기 류딘디 셴리아 짐바땅규에 세아제 수수 짐빈냠네 제고도 제사다 랑기 셴리아 짐빈냠네 제고에 세비 데네게 제네 랑기 나 춘슈에 된다려 안에 셴리아 판도주에 예수 춘슈에 된다려 수수 류리아 네버지교 말해서 네 찬세치도 네메자 셴리 펜바 춘슈에 된다라 안에 랑기 류리 네버지교 말해서 다른 랑기 류리 네버지스데 랑게 강 락바제지 짐바땅라 소바다 강바 제지 짐바 땅와라 소바다 안 소수게다 데니게 류르 뇌베게 짐바 땅바이나 지나 짐바 판연도 용고할 때니 아니네 판연 춘춘 차고레스 제사 데니 제베나 소소려 류르 뇌기레스 뇌네 냠네 야고지 투마레스 제사 데니에서 단다 춘춘 단다라 안디 류기 짐바데 데니게 짐바 땅교 말에서 오다 전주선바 초람바든 조람바든 소바 산예기도 짐바 땅야 만나와래 지다 짐바 땅교 말에서 아제 짐바 땅교에서 류르 네메샤 랑글르 네버치교 말세다 랑글르 네네 강바 라바 제 짐바 땅야라 소바난 단난기 수번나게 데니게 라소바 짐바 땅와이나 다 소수기 술을 네네 냠는 제마도 봐 차르고와 데네 냠는 제마도 봐나 산요고마 토야게 토게치다 냠는 제마도 디 경체 차고와 데네자다 데네게 랑글르 네베게 안데 샤네 펜버주야 충충 된다라 디치가 말해서
So look at the first line, this body that is for practicing the sublime Dharma. So this body of the 18 freedoms and endowments, it is the ideal vessel by which one can practice the sublime Dharma. And the sublime Dharma here refers to the body is an ideal vessel to cultivate the bodhicitta within, as well as engage in the 6 perfections. So it is an ideal vessel for practicing the sublime Dharma. Into the second line, this body that is for practicing the sublime Dharma should not be harmed for a minor purpose. So here, in particular, what the newer or ordinary bodhisattvas are being addressed, those on the bodhisattva paths of accumulation and preparation. On the one hand, they're being encouraged to make the most of this precious opportunity. And now that you have generated bodhicitta, engage in the various practices of a bodhisattva. And whilst training in all 6 perfections, your emphasis will be that on generosity. However, even though the wish is almost certain to arise, do not offer your body for a minor purpose. In other words, do not harm your body in the service of others, or even explicitly, do not give a limb or one's life to benefit others. Because if you do so, certainly benefit will come through you offering part of your body, your flesh, or maybe your limb, or even giving your life. It's not that it's an act without benefit, because it's motivated by bodhicitta, but the benefit is minor. And it's minor when compared to what can be achieved with this body, which is one's bodhicitta can be developed further, become made stable, and one can accumulate the qualities in relation to the 6 perfections. So therefore, whilst practicing generosity, you must not harm your body, but protect it. Because should you harm your body, the impediment to one's spiritual progression will mean it's a great loss. Compared to the minor benefit that would be been achieved, it's a great loss when compared to the spiritual progression that has now been impeded.
Dinigeda injimiji subo kangba jeba hugo martinik minyo basito daji odanga gongshi jiwe sede kalama subo yoshu jebene yobo chana nase leje na nyanga yoro dinenzada ko dinigi dinin nawane nyamne jetu go martinezade kanjele kangi thone ne susugu 최denje inada daji mantini jebene to sabsabchi subo manyo bachi ko gure so da aji manyo bachi or manyo be thone shalya robo jetu ne daji yasho chimba tabane dini robo chene digoro ba manyo be thone rang subo le nu me ba na nya ji lygi thone di ba ba anji thala so ba chimba ta ya la so ba dini yonguro ba de.
Here the advice is very clear to new bodhisattvas. Guard your body. This body can serve an incredible purpose. Guard it like one does a sensitive wound. If one has a sensitive wound, one is very careful with how one moves that limb. Maybe keeps it protected from cold air and so forth, or from coming into contact with anything. In the same way, with the same care, look after your body. And in this process of looking after your body means keep it healthy. Eat nutritious food, eat the right amount, exercise and so forth, and do so as an act of service to others. By keeping your body healthy, this means you can be of greater service to others. So therefore, look after your physique in order to be of service to others. And therefore, when you're taking care of your body, when you're not offering your body in a way that can cause you harm, that is a service to others. And in particular, when you are directly engaging with others, take care of your body. Do not harm your body in the service of others either. Not directly, not indirectly.
Ranshanyiga dunye tarshimbe dondalia, and semje tamjig dondo, sanyo govan tobe chirdo, and zo tsurimgi shisumbe tone, dene tsurim soya da jimbe jimba soba zundu, dene dinge zin shera komya, dinge zin komya, dene donbanyi tobe shera komya, jizada, dorduna, and semje tamjig dondo, sanyo govan tobe chirdo, and jiga gasore, labasumi nyamlen. Tsurimya laba, dingezin laba, sherayi laba sun nyamleri, da dinade, da duyna laba sun nyamleri duyja gure. Dine jes marsha na parshin chuki nyamleri chegore, so dus nyamleri chegore, dedar chene, semjen yi sede, dedar chene sede luydi denegi sungyo yaqo, den kebar che, sanjiyo goban tobe che, luydi ne za chimbo inba, ye chimbo tong, di yaqo chi, di dondala sungyo yaqo che che, ane de semje tamjigyo dondala ya, ane janshi simi kunyala pachi chuki nyamleri chegore, dine nye chimni, 제바이나 뉴도 조버 지고서 삼바 뉴도 조버 교수들 삼바시도 소수게 삼바 가르스네 샘제 탐지기도 산요고바 토비 치도 삼바 토비에 돈다디로 삼바디리 산요고바 톱네 셴리 펜버주바디 주에 디도야 미유 삼바디로와 삼바에 돈다디로 디엔자 샘제 삼바 뉴도 조버 교수네 디네 냠네 제바나 ane sanyu gopa nyu tokure, jisan samba sanyu gopa toyage tuanda chebadi, sambadi zugore, tuanda zugore chene. Nise de janju sema sigurwa de jisan di tobiya de kari samgore, semjiya tami sanyu gopa tobar dugorwa, tobar dugore, ane semjiya sanyu gopa tone semjiya dunga sene, semjiya tamje an dunga le johege sambadi rwas, jisan di denege nyamne cheba ina, ane denege sosuke sambi tuanda di zugure, nyuzu zuguro weso. 뉴스 산주고 토벌에 산주고 토벌에 sem지 펜바치 개체모 두두그리 해서 오다 뉴스가 요르스
The third and fourth line. If this advice is followed, sentient beings' wishes will be swiftly and completely fulfilled. So if this advice is followed, this refers to what's just been presented, which is that if one looks after one's body and life, whilst looks after it, both when both when one is on one's own, by oneself, as well as when one is directly engaging with others. If one does so, whilst one is therefore practicing the 6 perfections, generosity, ethics, patience, joy, perseverance, concentration, and wisdom, one will accrue great merit, and through this, the wishes of beings will be fulfilled. Because as the Bodhisattva accrues great merit and spiritually develops, they are able to fulfill the heart wish of beings, which is to be guided to attain lasting happiness themselves. So as the Bodhisattva, with this precious body, is training and developing qualities, their very motivation for looking after the body, developing good qualities, is so that they can benefit others, fulfill their heart wish. And their heart wish is for themselves to suffer less, to experience lasting, stable happiness. So through the activities of the Bodhisattva, directly and indirectly as they progress towards the attainment of Buddhahood, they benefit beings all the while. And thereby, the wishes of beings will be swiftly and completely fulfilled.
Tien di ma do nga zu lu tin di ma do che tu me ban da lu tin di nga zu ge lam len na lo song wa na shi dan ju lu an duen che bo ma sam da ya da de ne ge sam da tien de le ya de ne ge nyam le jo za de lu di song ge ya bo che ne nga tien de le ya da nga zu ge nyam le ge jin ba de gang tu tu che ba na da nga zu na da ro sim jan tam san yu ko ba to bi che do jam ni je ko mya da de ne pa ji lu ge nyam le do che ba na ane semje tamji sanyo gopa toya toba samba nashi, ane sambe tuyen juya da diyongurwa, jibarwa da.
So this advice is really explicitly for bodhisattvas on the training grounds of the paths of accumulation and preparation. But the advice we should take to heart and apply to ourselves with our own wish to gain liberation from suffering and become a Buddha for the sake of others. For us to take that wish and actually cultivate those required qualities within. This precious human rebirth we've each achieved and we've heard about in the Lamaram, it is rare. There are very few people with a precious human rebirth, or very few beings with one. And that is because it is so very difficult to attain the causes that are required. But having achieved it, incredible benefit can be achieved. It's of great value. Therefore, just like the Bodhisattvas, we should take care of this precious human rebirth. But the reason for taking care of it, this should be clear for us and it should be genuine within us. I need to look after my physical health in order to develop the qualities of the Dharma within, such as love and compassion. Develop the qualities so that I do become a bodhisattva. This needs to be the genuine reason why we take care of our health.
Jamni je chanju simla so pa da kiwe nyamlin chidu kabla da chike da namju da denbi thone je gore sungor namju da denbi thone be da tinga do chanju sim nyamni ni je nyamne chanju sim nyamni ji da jimbe nyamne je gore se samda se be ya gore sim chasan ji pa so sule ne mane sam ma ta je chasan du ta ya ge samda ta sha be na di gyung gure skarsen nyamne chegi sosu gu lüden liya da nga changju sim nyamne simje tamje le jimbe simje tamje ge sanju go ba de jimbe nyamne ji ge se de da diwa tene ge sem chura ge yodu 아니 거두들이야 아니 지게 가르네 지마 당로시스는 소소 유pen저되게 파제샤다 소소 류다 되게 돈에나 제제 안 제샤베는 아니 제리야 소소리야 안내나자 강아 제제네 되니 냠네 제투 말했더니 소소 셈베된 루투 말와서 그래 제사디 야고 섭섭제 된다 예침부 인바 삼다제 단고 판도 체중의 삼다제 두치네 판도 체디 아니 냠네 두치네 내가 충화디 판 도시의 샤워를 해서 이게 뒤에를 양아들이 줘서 하겠니 말이네. 지난데 제비 중에 된다를 채워 당겨 말했어야지 송송하대 어디나 된다 집어 차기도 하더니 다다 선수긴 냠는 집에 류된들이야 야고 즉 된 개발전 디딘들 냠는 제마도 내다 야고 즉 샤나티엔 샤나지리 냠네지도 깔래 가고리에 선배 삼다 자침부 하고네 된 류된들이 지 송급제 된들이야 수생 냠네 강도 제고를 했어지.
Moreover, when you're reading accounts of how bodhisattvas live, and when you're training in the minds of the bodhisattva, developing love, developing compassion, training in generosity and so forth, one's heart will open. The wish to emulate one's role models, one's spiritual heroes, will grow strong within oneself. One will come to recognize clearly that our wealth, our possessions, our body, these are impermanent. Their value tends to be over-exaggerated. Their value rarely lies in the good purpose we can put it towards. So this way of thinking is good, and it's good to develop well within oneself this wish to give of oneself entirely for others. However, in one's training, one should always be developing our intelligence and not act in a way that is perhaps spontaneous or primarily driven by emotion, but also to utilize our intelligence and be far-sighted. Because there are times when one wants to do something and can see that benefit will come, but it's better to actually decline or to say no. So for example, the wish to give of our wealth or our possessions or our food, or give of our health through working a lot for others, this will arise, and one may feel compelled, one may even really want to do so, but this comes at a cost, and that cost may be too great. So therefore, one needs to use one's intelligence, give one's wealth, give one's possessions, give one's food, give one's energy and commitment, but in proportion to one's skill and capacity. And the determining what one's skill and capacity is, this is up to each individual. To look within, use your intelligence or wisdom, to use your intelligence, determine if it is miserliness or laziness, or if I'm being overly ambitious, pushing myself beyond my actual capacity, and determine where that line is, and live within those restraints. And this is similar to what we looked at in the first verse last week, verse 83. The greater should not be discarded for the lesser. So here one utilizes one's intelligence. And even if in the short term some benefit will come, or maybe a great benefit to an individual or a small group, but it will end up impeding one's spiritual development in this life, then the cost is too great, and one should rather decline. So here we need to use our intelligence and think clearly for ourselves and make the right decision, not push ourselves too far.
나디네 달리지마다 디고송거래 니지 삼바 마다바 류디 당월 미자데스 지네 디당 셴도양 전신주비 규르당모스.
The 87th verse, which continues to look at the giving of one's body. Whilst the compassionate attitude is impure, do not give this body away, but in whatever way possible in this and future lives, give it to the cause for fulfilling a great purpose.
아다 인지 삼바 마다바 류디 지마다교 말해서 다장주 semba 초람바다 졸람발이야 아도 조 송거래 지산다 인지 삼바 마다바 세데 인지게 삼바 다바데라 나 잠니지 군이라 인지 거 장주 sem데다 셴된 바시 삼바 라든 파 남야 매바 현대 바시 삼바 다야데 니제 삼바 아니 대 안에 동바니 원숨도 또 베게 또바 토용도 니제 삼바 다바 차고래 지산 다더나 전주심비 통람 토용도 되는 니제 삼바 다바 하시 중고래 그래서다 되는 진비에 냠는 다 되게 잠니지 고민데 될이야 라든 현대 바시마도 라든 나 중세 예매 되게 되네 대안에 동바니 원숨도 또 베게 또바 또살 또도 되네고 공배 또 비랑 그 류디야 이기랑신 류세의 차사바래 되네자다 되네게 차도 잠니지 고민 전주심과 동바니 원숨도 또네 랑그 류디 이기랑신 류 전주심비게 파비고마 토요도 다 류디 이기랑신 류 차고 되네 이제 삼바 다바 차고래 디마도 봐도 이제 삼바 마다 바세 마다 류디 차고래 제가 되네자 전주심비게 초남바단 졸람비게 되게 류디게 이제 삼바 마다 비 류로 차고래 이제 삼바 마다 바 차고래 되네자 전주심바디 전주심바 초남바단 졸람바디게 다 진배 냠는 제여도 수수게 삼류용 토네 다 류가 이숨 차상 류롱제 계속다 제바 심자 탐제의 셴리아 당말에 삼바타관 당고래 셰스 삼류용원에 당원수 라렌 원수다 류진바 다야게 연삼대도 대다교 말해서 진짜 니제 삼바마다바 류대 당을 미자오 세대다 니 소람바다 졸람바다 니제 삼바마다바 진짜 마다바 인자 되니게 류대 다 삼비 토네 아니 류롱제 계속다 셈지 탐제리아 바다 셈딩네 바다야 다다 아니 원수 당외 내가블라 아니 류디 바 다교 말해서 진짜 류당외는다 류디 당외는 되네 아니 소식 냠네 제발에 바시고 거와다
So looking at the first two lines, whilst the compassionate attitude is impure, do not give this body away. Again, this verse has been directly addressed to the Bodhisattvas on the training grounds of the path of accumulation and the path of preparation. So these are Bodhisattvas. They are remarkable beings. They've developed uncontrived bodhicitta. They hold others as dear. They hold all beings equally as dear. And their self-cherishing is, compared to ourselves, nearly non-existent when compared to ourselves. But their compassion is still impure. And this is because their wisdom hasn't been developed sufficiently. They almost certainly will have a realization of emptiness, but it's not yet a direct realization of emptiness. So whilst they're holding themselves as dear, is compared to us incredibly weak. It is still compared to how they will develop when they become an Arya Bodhisattva. It is still quite strong. So therefore, a Bodhisattva on the path of accumulation and the path of preparation, because their compassion is impure, due to the power of their wisdom still needing to be developed further, and their self-cherishing needing to be weakened still further, they should not give their body away. They can do so on a mental level, in the Bodhisattva's imagination. That is fine, but not in actuality. However, when this Bodhisattva reaches that point where in meditation, emptiness is directly realized, in that moment, they attain the Bodhisattva path of seeing. They become an Arya Bodhisattva. They achieve a mental body, and their compassion now is pure because of the quality of their wisdom. Then their self-cherishing is also incredibly weak. From this point, a bodhisattva that has, again, realized emptiness directly, attained the Arya Bodhisattva paths, Bodhisattva grounds, and now, with a mental body, can and should give their body, physically, actually give their body. And sorry, if they do so too early, before the Arya grounds, they will create obstacles in their training.
강아 용거로 네베 강아 용거래 아니 아직 겨버겨봐 젤리야 아니 겨버겨봐 용거래서 용식이래서 되니게 제자디 간이야 디니엘 코라나 룰레 뇌미자스 진메데 뇌미자스 손소아 소소기 냠내 제바자 된 개발전 주에게 된 델이야 룰이야 뇌바 지겨마 뇌바 제바이나 안디기 냠내 제 룰이 송한테 디나신다 디로 룰이야 뇌바이나 랑그 룰레 뇌바나 야 강아체야 그래서 제시마도 솔람바도 졸람 룰이 영아도 룰나시래 나자다야 요래 네고 철라줘야 나자 되는 용으로 되네자 내려야 안에 강아 용야다 아니 어다 강아 제리야 수요마도 같이네 어다디 마타나 따다리에서 교비기하라 되는 용으로에서 진짜 되네자다 제는 디갑수다 류치마 당교 말에 산비토네다 바다에마도 아니 류던 거래 되네 무슨 란다비스나 나 당교 말에서 뭐
So whilst the Bodhisattva's compassion is still impure, in other words, before they realize emptiness directly, the kind of obstacles that can arise in their practice, should they give their body away in part or in whole, is that through the resulting harm or suffering that they experience, they may well end up generating regret. And this then is harmful. Rather, the skillful way is for the Bodhisattva to do as presented in the second line. Do not give this body away. Do not give it away in the sense of giving away your life. Do not give it away in the sense of giving away flesh or limbs. Do not give it away in the sense of helping others to such an extent that one becomes ill. Rather, help others in a balanced way. And if you want to give your body, do so, but solely on a mental level, through one's imagination, not directly.
그래서 얘네기 semje dundro dala soba desugida suju lychimba chimbi nyamle lychimba dashabana lyu ko zasheroda sanne cholado den susugi nyamle jibe denni meba charo roba denni sida denigi tone da dangyo mare so.
So for example, if one were to give one's body to hungry animals, and we know accounts of great beings who have done this, but do so before oneself is an Arya Bodhisattva, this will harm one's spiritual progression. The animals, they'll get a good meal, but one's spiritual progression will be greatly impeded. The benefit will not outweigh the loss.
지사다 가르레스나 대 지리스마 파바 파비긴 다지네미 냠렌지야다 지게 되네기네 다나디고로 와다시 지네야 니다 체델이야 된다 야침부 주효에다 되네기 진배 냠렌 제제 진배 냠렌디게 아니 랑게 된다 셴 샘절로 된다 야침부 주투야다 되네기 주에나 체대다 셴도야 시데 개와치마 체럽 셴도야 아니 류치바데 땅고래서 된신 주비 교당고 세데 제사데 되네게 류리야 인제 삼바 이런서 다베게 있는데 다 지금 류디 다야래야 아니 체대다 체신 개와치마기 된다니네 진지미지야시 된다 전부 주에 된다래야 땅고래 지마 땅고래서 언니가 언제 되려야 진에 되다 셴도야 된신 주비 교당고 세 된신 주바 된첨보 세야되다 semje 탐지게 된 산유고 화 토비 칠도 세야돼 될려고 주고로 된첨보.
So the first two lines, whilst the compassionate attitude is impure, do not give this body away. This is explicit advice to bodhisattvas on the paths of accumulation and preparation, that the only way they can give their body is on a mental level, not directly. However, now the next two lines, in whatever way possible in this and future lives, give it to the cause for fulfilling a great purpose. So we have battle. However, when one realizes emptiness directly, and one is now an Arya Bodhisattva, the third and fourth line applies. So the first two lines were about a Bodhisattva who has not realized emptiness directly, and the third and fourth is about a Bodhisattva who has realized emptiness directly. For them, they now have a motivation that's completely pure because of the quality of their realization of emptiness, that they've realized it directly. So they can, and in fact should, give their body to beings. So in whatever way possible, this could be understood as meaning one must, in this and future lives, give it to the cause for fulfilling a great purpose. And what is this cause that fulfills a great purpose? To lead all sentient beings to Buddhahood. For that reason, an Arya Bodhisattva can and in fact should give their body.
제사다 류 진바 땅완 될라 때네 소수게 냠는 또부 캐버 쉬우고 공도 패투야다 되네게 된다 개체모 주투야 있는데 아직 다나 뒤로 시작으로와 근데 남사디 냠는 제발에 때네 아니 요거 내 산지고만 토야기 토투야다 또부고만 다 파벨람 뉴르 기투야기 되네 주고가 비වෙ나 된다나 지고 그 된신 주비치도 되네 집 개체모 주비치도 있는데 다나 지기래서 중고로 가서네 될라 경력을 말아가지고 캡사를 맞아대 디카서 데라티는 또병고 공부도 주고로 와 근데 그지 어디 있어서 지나다 소수요 선음 초 개침을 써야 돼 현재 판도 개침을 주야지 배치 초이 개침을 수사투기는 네 디던달에 네 전주선바 대본 총화 전주선바 네 되게 네 지게 가서 미나 그세 미치 수업을 총가디 총아도 제가질에 미치 민갑교수에게 제시된도 전시선바디 ken진에 아니 민갑이다 코로나야 아니 이제 전부 예전 되게 아니 즉곧 수업이 되니게 이제 개발되게 아니 총이 까고 가지나 지다 초 빠도면 봐 줘봐 인승도와 되니게다 되니게다 류신바 땅위에 초 뒤에 되네 남산 소수게 도배 고방 뉴스 토야다 되네 나 아직 다나 지내야 다나 된신 주변에 인지미지 땅고래 세대 차우로 하네.
So I've presented these first two lines in the third and fourth line. It should be quite clear. Do not do this until you're ready, and then you should do it. In reality, for actual bodhisattvas, not ordinary people like us, but those who really are bodhisattvas in the paths of accumulation and preparation, they will hear the same teaching, but because of their incredible intelligence, their wisdom that has come through having become bodhisattvas and attained a minor realization of emptiness, they wouldn't take it quite as so black and white. They may well still, as an ordinary bodhisattva, give their body, give their life, because they recognize that in this particular exceptional circumstance, great benefit will follow. In such an instance, this advice will not be heeded. But for actual bodhisattvas, they have the capacity to make that kind of differentiation. Their wisdom is sufficient. They can really make that kind of differentiation. So, for example, the illustration given perhaps last week about the bodhisattva merchant who knew that the captain of the ship was going to kill all the other merchants to try and so as to steal their trade. The bodhisattva merchant killed the captain to save the captain from creating the strong negative karma. And that action by this ordinary bodhisattva did end up costing him his life in the sense that he fell to the lower realms. But that rebirth was very minor, and because of his genuine motivation was very brief, that rebirth was incredibly brief. But because of the power of his compassion, his actual compassion, because this was a bodhisattva, he accrued tremendous merit, and therefore it was beneficial. So there are these, you can say, bodhisattvas themselves can decide on an exception, that when this would not apply, when it's very clear that through a particular unusual action, they will accumulate an ocean of merit, and through this, they will they'll be able to benefit beings in the long run.
다 전주 semba 통람바다 근데 파비오고 원토한데 언제 류디 이기란시 류세데 이기란시 류세데 이나시 당은 주부도 생한도 통해야 되는 시에데 이나 파소 직패베는 직바다 가요 토원매가 처럼 배투고 그래서 거 고야요 말 가지고 거면은 지로 컴바나 주셔네 줘서요 말와 제자다 전주 semba 파비오고 원토서도 아니 고고야요 말에 그 앞에나 지게 지바다 대 토바다 래바 매바지 페두고래 심비 삼바 삼비레 두고래 파 도두고래 제래 지사데 네디리 이기라시 류세 이나시레서 이다 이기라시 류 네 토바다가 삼로디 토바다 바가이만와 삼록데 치로가와 다초로와데 도고로와 어디나시 류티니 지사데 류다 류제바다 두발로서 바지나 나자다요 말에 나자다요 말에 아니로 맨날 라과로 제지 침바 다셔베네 양 라바된 것인 야만 나신 주 남사 소용거래 용거래 제가 이기라 실루세 제가 니네 인자다 강하가요 말이야.
For an Arya Bodhisattva on the paths of seeing or meditation, there's no need for them to restrain themselves or refrain from giving their body, because with a direct realization of emptiness, they achieve a mental body. So a mental body, it looks just like an ordinary body, but it's called a mental body because the physical body can go wherever the mind goes. This is because physical obstructions, matter, do not impede the movement of the body. For example, a solid structure such as a wall, this will not stop a mental body. If the Arya Bodhisattva wants to be in a room, but the door is closed, the Bodhisattva just moves straight through. So they are in a very different situation from ourselves. Where their mind goes, their body can follow if they so choose. They will also never experience any illness. Should they offer limbs to an animal, for example, those limbs, it's not that they can regrow, but they're immediately replaced. So an Arya being, an Arya Bodhisattva, is in a very different position in terms of their mental body.
가와 가위 동아요 말해서 간고차 가지고는 차차제 간고차 수분인부 차요로 내가 가위 동아요 말에 시에기 동아요 말해서 가위 동아요 치위 동아요 말해서 가와다 나와다 치위기 가야요 말해서 그래서 리딩 곧이 달고 이기라시 두긴 많이 받쳐서 봐 제자다 가야 교와 가위 동아사다 내가 전에 지지가를 가르쳐 경고 차도셔로 수부 교신 뒤에요 말이스 나즈다야기 동아요 말은 치위기지요 말이스 제가 가와다 나와다 치위 동 가요 말이스 가다 나다 치와스 가요 말이스.
So not only does an Arya Bodhisattva not experience any illness, they also do not experience any aging, nor do they experience any uncontrolled death. So they are in complete control because of the quality of their realization of emptiness conjoined with bodhicitta. They do not, again, suffer from sickness, nor from aging, nor from death.
And that is Sanskrit Sanskrit Pali Chugu da Sanskrit Chugu Chorwa, da Sanskrit Chugu Nyamsuling Hendiki, da Dusine Disungore, Pali Chugu Tinghenzugi, Disungo Mare, Janju Semba the Maze, Janju Sembi Ludi, Papa, Karina Ludi, Yanzu Luda, Jibares, or San Yu Jim de Ludi, Yanzu the Jibares, Chesa Nai or a tire, San Yu Jim de Ludile, Nai or a tire, or Design was Sungha Disungo, that Ajik Drumtagi, that's what the Antiniki Tone, some or that Kalina Sungha, Midas, Yungri, that is not the Negi. That I Palichu didn't under Jiparena, Odang me Tishila in the shield that Karina, some like Dobarimura, Chizadi, Kochu, the Negi,
What I just presented about the mental body of a bodhisattva is something that you will hear in any Dharma center where they present the Dharma according to the Sanskrit tradition. But if you are in a center or you read a book that's written in accordance with the Pali tradition, there it is quite different. They say that they do not assert a mental body, and not only for bodhisattvas, but even they say the Buddha got sick, the Buddha aged. So they say a Buddha has a body just like ours. In the life that a being becomes a Buddha, their body stays that of an ordinary being in the sense that it's this contaminated aggregate. So the Pali tradition does not accept a mental body. We looked at two verses in relation to how the bodhisattvas should practice generosity with their body. Now we come to the 88th verse, where we look at the motivation in relation to someone to receive teachings. The 88th verse. The Dharma should not be explained to those who lack respect, to those, though not sick, wrap cloth around their head, to those holding a parasol, a staff, or weapon, nor to those whose head is veiled or covered. The Dharma should not be explained to those who lacked trust or respect for either the teacher or the teaching. The reason for this advice, this prohibition, is because benefit will not follow by explaining to the Dharma to someone who lacks respect or trust for the teacher or the teaching. And this is because, whilst they may hear unmistaken words of the Dharma, because of the negativity in their mind, they'll be looking for faults. They'll be seeking reasons to criticize and maybe even creating reasons to criticize. So no benefit will come, but in fact, they'll only be creating negativity. So this is general advice, not to teach to those who lack respect or trust. Just like we say, do not eat poison, because there's general advice. Do not eat poison, because you'll get ill, you may even die. But there are times or maybe certain poisons, which in tiny enough quantities actually serve to benefit.
매나 콜티 셰비 진의 시에네 견제 최 송비 견제 콜 유어치모 판도치모 유어치모 땅 투고였는데 마 거다디 내가 버들 거 대바다 지 구십 지고 말든 디시에나 고냠 고 디네 최시비기 디견제네 고 어다 대바게나 구십 제다 디냠네 제에게 유투고였는데 시나 최시나 지고로 받아 다 되네 지단에 다 되네 구십 매바다 되네 대바 매발라 시기와 말에 시나 아니 발제 연구를 해서
In general, this is good advice to be followed, to not teach someone who lacks faith or respect, because by their critical attitude, their seeking of fault and seeking of argument, they will be creating obstacles in their mind to the Dharma. And so whilst this is good advice, good general advice, the reality is unless the person who's going to teach really has good clairvoyance and knows the karmic or the outcomes, the karmic consequences that will follow, it's difficult to really say with certainty what the impact of the teaching will be on someone. If they merely lack faith or respect, but their mind is open still, benefit may well follow. And even if benefit doesn't follow immediately, the imprint will be positive. It's really when the mind is particularly negative, seeking fault, wanting to criticize. That's when harm is much more likely. But if someone is very new, they don't really know anything, so they're quite skeptical, this is fine. If their mind is open and they're receptive and they're curious, benefit may well follow.
디니시나 판도였어요. 디니시나 뇌설의 선비기다. 디니시에는 걸 판도설의 뇌와 뇌용설의 선바다. 디니시에는 걸이야 판설의 선비기다. 이 현기 뭐 거기 삼로 나로 가리여바다 가리여바디 캠비게다 원시 고고걸 당한 원시네 현준 지비 원시 세대. 지사다 현기도 나 주발라 원시되게 계침을 채고로 봐. 지사 다 상기기네 지사다 심진에 감나 매벌에 드는 숭구레시리 코로나야 감나 매버 가르시는 판도 체계도 가르 손은 되게 판도 체계 대로 캔지의 숭고로 봐. 얘네 자다 그래서 네 현준 집에 야라도 원시 고고를 당 그러면 당 나도 보시나 이 되네 강의 신고 말 마신도 지나도 여바데 곧 베니니어 만나다 판도도 한 먹었지 디가야 마셔 소수게 삼수디디마 제시게 시요로다 제사 원이시네 미곧 생규 지 야보 베니 삼루이 계산하다 안 판도 가르여베데 거기 년행기 될이야 안에 삼루이 돈에 하고와 돈에 시나 다 고고를 원이시네 디고고로다 시는 제발에 시는 집 원시해야 돼 제사 상예기 rigbi nenga la khaba chi gore se rigbi nenga jarikpa ane chenyiripa ane chiki denege rigbi nenga la sorripa mengi ripa ane denege tenju ripa chasa dusini khaba gore shenden rupa la denege khaba gore ese gore chisa
So therefore, when teaching the Dhamma, a person needs to think well whether what they are planning on saying, whether it will be of benefit, and or when teaching the Dhamma, let's rephrase that, when teaching the Dhamma, the person who's going to teach needs to think well about what they're going to talk about and how they're going to express it, so as to increase the likelihood that it will be of benefit and do no harm. And for the vast majority of people who do teach the Dharma, this is the best they can do, on the basis of a good motivation and what little they know of their audience, to try and teach in a way that will benefit without doing harm. And for someone who does teach, this impediment of only being able to try their best and knowing that it could be better serves as a good motivation to develop spiritually, so that clairvoyance can be developed and come to know the minds of others. And not just to develop clairvoyance, which is comparatively not a high attainment, but to actually become a Buddha. Because it's not just that the quality of a Buddha is so great, it's so much greater than ordinary clairvoyance, but a Buddha knows the karmic background, the personality type, the disposition of each person in the audience. And not only knows that, but knows how best to present the teaching in a way that will touch their heart, that will open their mind. So a Buddha has this remarkable quality that non-Buddhas do not have. So this also serves as inspiration to those who teach the Dharma to spiritually develop as quickly as one can. And to speak honestly from my side, this is an impediment for me. All I can do is my best, and I hope for good results. But beyond that, I can't say whether how I teach and what I teach will have this kind of impact, that kind of impact on others. And moreover, when we think to classical education, it's still what is tried to be emulated today for those who want to teach. It's presented or called the 5 sciences, or the 5 knowledges perhaps, 5 areas of knowledge. And that people are, those who want to teach, are encouraged to develop a broad education so as to be of great benefit to others. So here, of course, we have religious philosophy, so Buddhism, but also we have logic, medicinal knowledge, grammar, and arts and crafts. So a broad-based knowledge, education, so as to be of benefit to as many people as possible.
Minashindo Goti Dasi, Jesada, Gozo, on the me, never Mevachena, Qualipa, Chick, Carzore, the Shamukumbala Sobada, Denigi, and a chick, that red and the Nego Gotine, Tumshavat, Tumji, Devasa, or Desilia, and to Stella, then Devene, and a desolate shake your Mariason.
Verse then continues with others who are showing signs of disrespect. So those in the second line, those who are not sick, so their head is not bandaged, but yet they may be wearing a bandana or a hat of some type. So such a person should also not be taught.
Never in Shamu Magone Majibata, Namshi Chamushu, Chadivada, and the Niki, a chick, Yungurua, in a Kokapkoya, Yungurua, and a Gabriel Nimatsawa, Sawi, in a Kokapkoya, the Negro, Kolia, Retua, Shamukonga, Yosugua, and Denisula, Quavacum Chen, Yavanza, and then Gayamare. Then the Muni that the Niki Meva Chilia, and the Denigate. Gotiba, Shamugombala, Soba, Denizina, and the Chishiga Maria session.
As said quite clearly in the second line, it's clear that those who are ill, whose head is bandaged, whose wound is bandaged, there's no fault at all in teaching them. And even if what's perhaps more relevant in the summer months, if one is outside and talking about the Dharma, but it's a hot day, people should wear hats. So then to teach them whilst wearing hats, this is good. And more relevant at this time of year, if one is inside and it's cold and you've got a beanie on, that's no problem either. To teach in such a circumstance is also no fault, because there's a clear purpose behind the headwear, a clear need and benefit.
Duda, Kawa, and Tundota, said Lavalia. And the guys do peep, 2 peeps, and then Lavala, Gawaki, Lavalia, Trenja, Todibana, so by the Nayuna, there's a Chishi, Maris.
In the third line, also one shouldn't teach to those holding a parasol, a staff, or wielding a weapon. So one shouldn't teach to them.
Is it? 난 되다 되네리 제사다 도시네 kubjaagale dus devata tene ya devigale kangba kyang she dushin pata devale desle chushi yomarasire.
There are other prohibitions about those seating higher, such as on chairs, or sitting with the legs outstretched, facing the teacher.
Diso that jidane sungore dusine that dene dehendigele dos jikari ungorasene dos jik peni sheshin delia dos 가서 90 maybe number 연구래 되네자 안데설레디 치고 말해서 그래 아직 다들이 고바 김체 여바 되는 도시에 되어야 안에 지금 사강 되나 강아 여바 구비가 되고 받은지 되고야 다양 직강보야 마냐만은 지 마디와 유비나 안데서 양 고바 있고 되네기 최需要 최다 라마 최다 최리에 대바 여바다 최등법벌에 대바다 구배 90 여바 삼로나라 가야 되네기 90 여비 토네 아니냐 되다라 도시네 지게 되어야 하는데 괜스카야 말이지.
So again, this is general advice that is in the context of these being signs of disrespect, that one would sit in a chair, elevating oneself, or holding a parasol, or wearing some kind of headwear, as a sign of self-aggrandizement, making oneself seem important, so as to show a lack of respect for the teacher or the teaching. So these would be physical ways to display a lack of respect. So it's about if someone is going to the trouble to physically show their lack of respect, to such a person, now's not the time to teach. The exceptions are, as already mentioned, and likewise with those prohibitions just mentioned. If people sit on a chair because they're aged and it's just not possible to sit on the floor, or quite frankly, sitting on the floor is not a habit and is not comfortable, whereas one can listen in an undistracted manner in a chair, that's completely different. What these are about are those who have a mental attitude of disrespect or lack of respect and are displaying it through their behavior. In those circumstances, such a person, it's better not to teach.
지지단에 고도시들 국제학을 되어야지 검시로지 lumbi기 조타로 고시를 되는 여배는 대소대 아직 교육이 말해. 당한서 알아서 디나시래다.
And of course, this text was composed in a particular cultural context, and the prohibitions are taken with that understanding. So when one is in a different culture, there may be different ways that one would show disrespect. And ways which are done, and in this culture, are not disrespectful, such as sitting on chairs or stretching one's legs out. There's no disrespect meant by this or shown by this in our culture. If in this culture one wanted to show disrespect, one wouldn't do so through sitting on a chair or stretching one's legs out.
Dene devane bini devendele ko ngaja kalangazo yorwa tube가 첨부해서 근데 얘네 최시원데 제라기 아니 대바 당 구셔빙고 말와데 제가 데니기 콜 최시베네 고팽이 막아선 두비디어도 ngaja 된 지부진 거 원체다 권에 첨부해서 비게 데니고 직 아시우인 선비게다 제네 두비고로 누구로 데네자 데니기 나 카와 라발라 교과 유현데 메세 다지 지단에 시우라다 다야지 내바다 되나 인지미지 요과라 된데 되어가 하시나 안디고라고 셰셰쇼로 카르바스는 요과 제자 요과케 두두라고라 요과케 되면서 최시교 말에 손으로와 인지 민지 교과를 땡제 되어 그한 제용고라 내바다 교과 맨에 되어 맞던 저러와 교과 주 되어 간 저러와 안 됐을 야 최신의 지거로 그 거기 제여와 제가다 데네가 가야 맨에 다 교과를 해 되면은 지 됐어 최신쇼 말해서 이제 라바도 천도바다 제다 멤다로 소바 제대로 있는데 최신쇼 말해서 야 밀라메기 구송하다 메니 송급제다 데네게 토네 인연에 걸 니 최년에 걸现在这个罗的个좀 제야 돼.
To speak specifically then about the three illustrations in the third line. So a parasol, I think this probably quite broadly would be taken if someone were to attend a teaching and holding a parasol above themselves. This would be a display of pride, of wanting perhaps to draw attention from the front of the room, from the teacher, to themselves. And there's such a person sitting inside under a parasol would be one imagines wanting to communicate, look at me, look who I am, rather than wanting to sit there and hear the teaching. So in such an instance, the Dharma should not be explained to such a person. And likewise with a staff, again, why would anyone have a staff? Is this again, the reason would need to be identified. If it's a walking stick, if it's a crutch, of course, entirely a different story. But if someone's standing there, sitting there with a big stick, maybe they're trying to communicate something. And likewise with weapons. Someone with a knife or a gun, it's not ideal to come to Dharma teachings. But again, there's, like with a staff, there's the exception of a walking stick or a crutch. Likewise, if there are bodyguards present, then they would be armed. And that, of course, is quite different.
And nala that church yungwene and the jigi lama da chelia deva cheda and the lu tone and guship de tone odusi and yangu ore denigi and yangu ore denigi church yulia and deva da and chelia deva me lama le guship me baina that is so do da la wala chonto ba da kawa jeva da and the church de galia tigal deva da gangbai yang deva de guship me ba chagore just denigi guship me baina Delia and Cheshevane Pando Yung Mares, Chizanti Shigio Mares, Cheshedi, Pay to the Sungorwa, Chizanta Pink Mevan, Shewayo Maras or Sungio Mares, the member Yajik, the Negi Duetalia, and the image Jiko, Yok, Gol Shamukungo, Gochikoyada, the Nekubia Galatua, Kan, the Duoegi, Yajik, the Madina, Magina Madikan Chio Bachina, and the Yajik Tigor was what that. Church, Church, Deva, Lama, Deva, Gushab Yoba Chilia, and Yaji, Golia, Shamumagona, Yimetiata, Dula, so Mabina, Chabayon, Chabia, Ganga Yoyata, Denige, Gina, and Kayamares order. That is go your percentage, Jamugan, but a Gore, Tishava Chibaro, that is Lavshan go your was in the Gova Dulola Soba, Yoshan, Pakapshaba, Kotum de Yungua, and Chezantinza, is that the Nigi Namshe Jangmo, Cha, Nime, Tia, Chaba, the Nigga Ganga Sungubichidu, the Jena, or did you Rocheshan? The member in Javana, the Chishoma, said, go your was. That is not Duta, Kalala, Kaba Tobata, Sanja Tobata, Gopa, Yoche, Dulu, Pakaptiva, La Soba, the nature.
The final line, to those whose head is veiled or covered. Again, it's the same as with the illustrations given before. If there's no reason for one to wear a veil in particular or to cover one's head, then there's no need to wear it, and one should not do so. Otherwise, if it's a bit out of place, what is one trying to communicate? Is it a look at me, or is it's a being here and it's more about being seen or being looked at rather than hearing the teaching? And as with the other illustrations, where there is a legitimate reason, such as it's cold and one wears a scarf over one's head, that's of course completely different. So with all of these illustrations of showing a lack of respect, what is required is not merely this physical display of wearing a hat or having a staff, whatever it may be. It's not merely that physical display. It is the attitude of the person who's doing so. So if they have a genuine mind of trust and respect, and there is a need for such, well, let's rephrase that. If there is a need for them to be wearing headwear and so forth, then that's not a problem. But if they are doing so as an active display of their negative mind, then to such a person it's better not to teach. And again, this is culturally sensitive. There'll be different things in different cultures, that different means by which, through one's physical gesture, through one's body language, one shows disrespect. So there may be other culturally specific ways as well. But what it really comes down to is just this, that those who have a mind that is negative and closed, to them, it's probably negative, closed, and seeking fault or criticizing. So a negative attitude, a closed mind, and are seeking fault. To them it is better not to teach, because their mind will only go in a negative way towards the Dharma, not a mind that's open and inquiring, and therefore they will create obstacles for the Dharma to, in the future, arise in their mind. Whereas on the other side, if someone is new and they don't really they haven't developed trust yet, and they haven't yet developed respect, but their mind is not negative, their mind is open and curious, then certainly for them, or to them, the Dharma should be explained.
Adini mela da samba sambi thone manla sabda Geshe dang jeba me bar pime min menda choge chenamla tsungbar guibe kundu jes.
Then the 89th verse. The vast and profound should not be taught to practitioners of lesser capacity, nor should the Dharma be taught to women without another person present. Here, solitary realized and Bodhisattva practitioners and their teachings should all be treated and practiced with equal respect.
Remember dala sa menla sabda Geshe dang sidu nearly men sidu da samba ja chungwa ane tabachimbi kaso tabachimza jamni je dang janju sim la soba da dongni la soba denigi nyamlen je tuyegi denigi nuba medu ken denigi onda ngazubine da lamrim nalane kibu chungune gapsu karchi wasne so ane mitaba denju limje mitaba chiwa mitaba share de sungorwa jidan ko karesne kolya jamni je la soba temba ko nudu rungyo mar kasne ko samba da de chungju ma do yamar denigi samlo tamba tube samba chungwa members de samlo ge chungwa de gelya ane ko de saba side da dongba inda damya ba da dongba yi ko share da ane gechewa jamni je changshu sem ane 파신 중에 냠래라 소바 셰바이나 고 아니 고톰 중에 고저 하고 두고 말에 세상 평균 말에 지제 디술이야 데니게 삼나 야촌쇼 데레 데슬라 내갑다데 디술 마이 송교 말에서 디시교 말에서 평균 말에서.
First line, the vast and profound should not be taught to practitioners of lesser capacity. Those practitioners of lesser capacity in the context of the Lamrim are those such as those of initial capacity. So for such practitioners, they should be guided in the meditations on impermanence, because they can come to recognize the impermanence of this life, the impermanence of compounded phenomena and so forth, and that would have a real impact on them and allow their mind to develop and the Dharma to grow within them. However, if their capacity is not yet sufficiently broad, to give them the broader teachings, which will be, or the teachings that require a vast and expansive mind, to give them those teachings, such as on love and compassion and the first few perfections, they would not be ready for that. They would struggle to cultivate those qualities within. because their mind is not yet broad or vast enough to be able to relate to the concept of all sentient beings, for example. And likewise, if their mind is not yet ready for the profound teachings on the presentation on reality, that too shouldn't be taught to them. Rather, the teaching should be in accordance with their capacity.
Bendigo dan anzu namjine labdai na tawaro pu chunjun ya 지고 코로나리아 롭선 충주락마다 롭선 첨부디게 레구마로 롭선 첨부디게 랍나 콜 판도요 말 뉴그리마도 그 판도도 말 뉴 판도도 말 지상 콜리아 디 자야기 뉴베디다데 매바서 코로나리아 롭선 충주로지마도 지마로 어디 나시 내가 코로나리아 되니게 부 충주나 되니게 삼로 같이 뭐 담아도 코로나리아 판도에게 죄도 마소야다 되니게다 지게 메타발라 소바다 덴줄이 뭐지 된체발라 소바다 되니게 마 발코르제 되니 냠내지 될 냠내야 갈간삼리 뉴바체르도 네 gelgel이셔 소마 당본데다 건설이야 되니게 삼바게 춘시데 졸이야 배 주체 사보 같이 뭐디게 마 송교 말 송바나 네 콜판도지 용 말해서 뭐 되니 어다디 신두사 말해서 샤샤에게 내가 여러와 어찌 다디 갈래 하월 땡이 줘서 말해서 유니도 나마지에 차이 내가 여러와
This is just like at school. There may be some school pupils who have heard about some of the deeper teachings on their particular subject, but the school teacher recognizes they haven't got the foundation to skip ahead a few years and to teach them a higher level class on that topic. They just wouldn't get it. It would be a waste of time, and they may become disheartened. So the teacher will teach them in accordance with where they are, so that they can progress to that higher level. And so to here, if someone's capacity, if someone receives teachings beyond their capacity, on one hand, they may not understand, and that's okay. But on the other hand, and this is the real danger, that they may reject the teaching and thereby create inner obstacles for later when they would otherwise have been ready. So if they hear teachings on the vast bodhisattva deeds or on the profundity of emptiness, and they have an adverse reaction to that and a rejection of it, that is problematic, and it's that in particular that one needs to guard against.
Delia Chushi be Gablia Chunyang, we make Yanya Himena, Delia Roba, and a Gabach Kuris, of course, cousin Gabach Robach Mevache, and we make Yam the Chiburia, Chichi Devena, D and Yahweh Mares, just a Robert Gaba in Chimchcore, Gabach Mevache, Chushi Mares more.
In the second line, nor should the Dharma be taught to women without another person present. Probably should be, nor should the Dharma taught to a woman without another person present. So this is in the context of where the teacher is an ordained monk, then he should not teach to a woman alone and without companions present. And this is because of disparagement from others and so forth, and it's against the monk's vows anyway. So if the teacher is a nun, then it's of course in relation to a man. So therefore, and this is advice for ordained teachers.
And
of course, from the perspective of the ordained teacher, if they put themselves in this position, they can create obstacles to keeping their ordination.
Chiknismato Mevarachina, that it's in a Chushavana, in a Chige Yan Notre Shuraki, Yangachimborova, is that what you and I or
And whilst this advice is intended for the ordained teachers, honestly, it should also be taken by non-ordained teachers. Because whilst a non-ordained teacher doesn't have ordained vows to guard against, they would not infract the vow that a monk or a nun would by teaching someone of the opposite sex alone. whilst they wouldn't have that vow to infract, there is still danger of being alone in a power disparity where someone's a teacher and someone's a student, where faults can follow. So there too, one should refrain from being in such a position. And for the ordained, they need to be aware that even if they feel confidence in their mind that no fault will follow or they won't do anything that they should not, people may well criticize, knowing that it should be done, knowing that there is potential danger, and not wanting others to create negativity, they should refrain from putting themselves in such a position.
Menda chowe chenamla tsungbar guibe kundu ches jaza da menda se de da nyendu ye lamye rimbata ane rangye ye lamye rimba nyamne rimba dike sungore jaza da soso jibo tarbi ko ba tobe chedo da lam jimbalo so ba nyamne che rimba de da nyendu ye lamye rimba da rangye lamye rimba se sungore jaza da 초 세대다 전시샘별 남기림바 양아도야 잠니 제 전시샘 파신 중이냐면 샘제 탐지게 되는 삼단냐면 맞지 됐송거래 제가 디네자 데려야 아니 어다 뭐듯이 다디 네 두고 타바토에기 전시샘별 냠내림 받아라 가서 란지 남기림 받아 년득이 남기림 받지 타바토바 쌈미리 마도 상교고와 토발에 팽이 말에 세 디냠는 지교 말에 세야디 다시 디시야다 아니 데레데 전주심별람 냠네데 약쇼레스 디니 파셰바나 디시교 말레스 가선 디니 셰바나 최봉벌레사고레스 제자다 전주심별람 냠니림바이나라 라니 람냠 라니 림바이나라 상기고바 토베겔 람판 규차고레 팽고레 마도 메판바 마레스 제자 디레스 온두시네 인지치교 마레스 안디메 마세 아다 년도다 라예 람네데 초도 규바데 전주심베 람냠데 니제군에 라디 파진 중에 냠네제 초도 규바데 디 초도 규바 제오레 메다디 메디 년도다 라예 람데데 타바토와자마다 요마르심베게 통중 다야라 디네 지교 말 디네 인도 최봉을 예사기레스 디네 마제바제 안 숭바세다 소스라랑기 델리아 아니 년도다 라예 람 상기 전주심베 람 이름을 찾아 또 타비 탈도 상이고 봐도 규체고레스 야고레 선비게 총발 좀다 될이요 90제다 안에 될이야 안에 연주에 람냠는 지해나 랑예 람냠는 제나 차상리야 90제다 람리야 안 대소 람리야 대바던 90제고레스 구비스 안에 군도 지에세디 랑기야나 소소라라 전주심베 람냠는 지hen치네 연주에 람이름 받아 안에 랑예 람이름 받아 냠는 제고레스 제자당은 저 다들 태바침이 취념의 지간지제 매기부 중요한 남이름바 치워에 미다바다 미다베 단주 된식의 남이름 삼다하지 삼당고로 봐. 너 코위 동화 탈래 저 레디 델레 코와레 타제는 탈비고와 토구선배 삼당고로 봐. 제자디 제서 아니 기부 중요한 남이름은 냠는 지교 말씀 샤교 말에서 단단인보데 간제래다 년주의 남나 랑제 남냠는 대 통중 다야다 안마 직디 냠는 바 예와체 체와라 소바 지교 말에스 수수 구십제 대바 제고레스 수수이나디 냠는 제고레스 랑제 남냠는 제고레 년주의 냠는 제고레스 전주심베 남냠는 제가 지인배 있네요. 디 제고비 김자 그래서는 다 전주심베 남냠는 제간자 랑제기 람로 메바 지간솔레 최된지 콘솔리아 현대 주고고레 랑제기 람냠네 지간레 콘솔레 최된다 랑제 현대 주고고레 지선 수수의 냠네지 마신 바이나 콘솔레 로봇이 판도지 두야 요마르바 지사 디니 자 sem전 탐지기 된다 지 판도 주고고인자 아니 랑기 나데 귀베지 에세드다 냠네 제고고레 해서 올때네야 군도 지 에세드다 군시아데 년되게 나이르메다 랑제 람이름 받아 진이게 전주심베 람이름 차산냠네 제고를 해서.
Just before I translate what Ken has said, because some of you will have other translations in front of you. So how I've translated the verse is in accordance with the meaning of some of the words, but you'll have different words in front of you. So what I've translated in the first line as lesser capacity is the word for lesser or lower, and can be translated as the, what do you call it, the Hinayana, the lower vehicle. But the meaning here was lesser capacity, so those of initial capacity. So that's, again, meaning. And now that same word, lesser or lower, is in the third line, and it's translated again in accordance with the meaning of hearer and solitary realizer. And then, so here it refers to the teachings and practitioners of the hearer and solitary realizer lineage. So that is how the word should, the meaning of the word, but again is lesser or lower. And then the word that comes after that is supreme, which here means Bodhisattva practitioners. So just to say that, in case what you have in front of you is quite different, this here is the meaning. How I've translated there is the meaning. The meaning, so it will, it may be the different words you have in other translations. Now to what Geshe said on the third and fourth line. Hearer, solitary realizer, and bodhisattvas, as bodhisattva practitioners, and their teachings should all be treated and practiced with equal respect. So here, that one is being guarded, in particular, those who are drawn towards or maybe have even attained the bodhisattva path. So those who aspire to the bodhisattva paths or have attained them are here being advised to guard their mind against possibly accruing the karma of abandoning the Dharma. And this could come through developing a negative attitude towards teachings and practitioners of a different lineage. So someone of the bodhisattva predisposition, either an actual bodhisattva or someone who aspires for the bodhisattva trainings, if they look at the bodhisattva trainings and say, oh, these are best because they lead to Buddhahood, they think of all sentient beings, whereas those teachings that practitioners are striving for their individual liberation, those practitioners and their trainings, their practices, they lesser because they only lead to individual liberation. This kind of dividing the teachings of the Buddha into good and bad, better and worse, this is to be guarded against. Because from this, a negative attitude towards the teachings of the Buddha can arise, as well as to the practitioners of those teachings. This needs to be guarded against. In particular, what could well happen is the misunderstanding of thinking, I only need to engage in the Bodhisattva's training and the rest of the teachings can be discarded. Again, this is a misunderstanding, and one needs to guard against this because one is, in effect, criticizing or deprecating, maybe better than criticizing, deprecating, looking down on a large portion of the teachings from the Buddha. Rather, we should be very clear. When the Buddha taught, he taught to lead beings to the attainment of Buddhahood. Some of the teachings were explicit and direct, such as how to cultivate bodhicitta and the wisdom realizing emptiness and progress through the bodhisattva paths and grounds. Others were indirect. They taught first how to achieve an excellent rebirth. Then there are others that taught how to achieve one's own individual liberation. And this is done through training such as generosity and ethics and the wisdom realizing emptiness and so forth. Those teachings were from the Buddha so as to help beings ease their suffering and cultivate lasting happiness. And if their route to Buddhahood is via their attainment of individual liberation, for some people, that is their disposition, and this may well be the best route for them. Therefore, those who are pursuing that route, and then that route itself, the teachings of the Hira and Solitary Realizer traditions, are not to be deprecated. They are teachings from the Buddha, and they serve to ease the suffering of beings, and to help them develop the causes that will lead to lasting happiness. There is no valid basis at all for criticizing or abandoning certain teachings. Moreover, let me just get this. So moreover, all the teachings need, for those who aspire to become a Buddha for the sake of others, all the teachings need to be known well. And the actual trainings need to be cultivated so one has skill in them. So this is understood in two ways. For those who aspire to the Bodhisattva paths, they have to engage in the trainings which are shared with beings of initial and intermediate capacity, because those are the indispensable foundation to later develop bodhicitta and realize emptiness. Without those foundational trainings, bodhicitta and the wisdom realizing emptiness cannot be developed. Moreover, even for actual bodhisattvas, they also need to train in the foundational trainings. Why? So that they can guide beings who need to be trained in how to reflect on impermanence, how to reflect on the faults of cyclic existence. They need to know the various different trainings that they can utilize to benefit beings who are more suited to such trainings. So therefore, in the fourth line, this word all. So this relates to all the teachings of the Buddha need to be cultivated by bodhisattvas, need to be trained in by bodhisattvas, so they can teach them to those for whom they are most suited, and teach them in a way that is based on both knowledge and experience, so they can teach authentically. And then again, for those who aspire to the bodhisattva paths, have to train in the foundational practices, the foundational trainings, otherwise the bodhisattva paths will only ever be an aspiration.
Tanda kar sonsone sanje chenju simbade yanduge lamda rangi lam ane rangule keba nyamlen cheche rangule keba chewa kene onsumdo dokores sheba che onsumdo hago dokores dene andene shanlia lamge jawaya jala sidu shanlia pento bi shanlia denje ba dosi shingi pan jawa duko re shensemje nyanduge lamde tarpele ko ko ya rangi lamde tarbi ko ma tajime ko ma le ko ya ge and
Geshe now just quoted a Mahayana Sutra in which the Buddha says, bodhisattvas need to be both skilled and knowledgeable of the trainings of hearers and solitary realizers. And bodhisattvas need to apply themselves to the trainings of hearers and solitary realizers. Why? So that you can teach and guide those who are more inclined to those trainings. So the bodhisattva, the Buddha is saying here explicitly, need to not just intellectually know, but apply themselves, cultivate these qualities of the hero and solitary realizer path, those trainings, cultivate them within themselves, but their motivation is one of bodhicitta. Why? Because the bodhisattva, in order to benefit beings who aren't so inclined to the bodhisattva path, can benefit them to lead them through the hero and solitary realizer paths. So this is from the Buddha himself. Okay, so we're a little bit over time tonight, so apologies for that. Thank you very much.